Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are stepping away from the marble columns of the Forum and the blood-soaked sand of the Colosseum to enter a much more intimate, yet equally chaotic space, the Roman living room. When we imagine the ancient world, we often picture stoic philosophers and stern generals, but the domestic reality of the Roman elite was a vibrant, bizarre tapestry of excess, and nowhere was this more visible than in their choice of pets. While a loyal dog or a working cat might suffice for the common plebeian, the masters of the Mediterranean craved something more. They wanted a creature that signaled their absolute dominion over nature itself. Enter the monkey. Far from being simple curiosities, monkeys in ancient Rome were complex symbols of wealth, cosmopolitan reach, and distinct social status. They were the ultimate accessory for the Roman, who had everything. In this episode, we are going to explore the saga of the Roman pet monkey, a story of luxury, cruelty, deep affection, and the immense lengths to which an empire would go to amuse itself. We will begin our journey not in Rome, but on the edge of the empire, where the desert meets the sea. For centuries, historians had to piece together the life of Roman pets through scattered literary fragments. A biting line from a satirist here, a mention in a natural history text there. But recently, the sands of Egypt offered up a discovery that revolutionized our understanding of this practice. At the ancient port of Berenike on the Red Sea coast, archaeologists uncovered a pet cemetery that completely defied expectation. Dating to the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, this site was not a garbage dump. It was a place of tender, almost desperate reverence. Among the graves of house cats and hunting dogs, researchers found the skeletons of monkeys. But these were not just any monkeys. For a long time, historians assumed that most Roman pet monkeys were Barbary macaques, a species native to North Africa. These would have been relatively easy to import across the Mediterranean. But the Berenike skeletons told a different, far more impressive story. DNA and morphological analysis revealed them to be rhesus macaques and bonnet macaques. These are species native to India. This distinction is monumental. It means that these animals were not just captured in the nearby Atlas Mountains. They were shipped thousands of miles across the Indian Ocean. They were passengers on the perilous trade routes that brought spices, silks, and gems to the empire. To own an Indian monkey was to possess a living, breathing piece of the uttermost East. It was a testament to a trade network that spanned the known world. The graves themselves spoke of a deep anthropomorphic love that transcends the millennia. One monkey was found buried with a woven basket and a folded piece of cloth, arranged uncannily like a rag doll. It suggests the owner saw the creature not as an animal, but as a child who needed its toys in the afterlife. Another burial was even more touching and bizarre, a monkey interred alongside a piglet and a kitten. It paints a vivid picture of a household menagerie where these animals lived, played, and perhaps died together. These were not livestock to these people. They were companions. However, the bones also whispered a darker truth about this relationship. Many of the skeletons showed signs of severe rickets and malnutrition. The wealthy officers who owned them clearly loved them. After all, they buried them with expensive imported blankets and pottery, but they had absolutely no idea how to care for them. In the harsh, sun-baked desert of a Roman port, these jungle creatures withered. They were likely fed on human scraps of bread and wine, rather than the fresh fruits, vegetables, and insects they biologically required. It is a heartbreaking paradox of the Roman pet trade, an abundance of affection coupled with a fatal lack of biological knowledge. To truly understand the status of a pet monkey, we have to look at the logistics of luxury. The journey of these animals was a nightmare of supply chain management. It began in the lush canopies of the Indus Valley. Professional hunters, often locals employed by Roman agents, used nets and snares to capture the animals alive. They specifically targeted infants, as they were easier to tame and far more appealing to buyers who wanted a living doll. From there, they were crated and loaded onto merchant vessels sailing with the monsoon winds. The periplus of the Erythraean Sea, an ancient shipping log, details the goods moving between India and Roman Egypt. Amidst the sacks of black pepper and bales of cotton sat crates of frightened primates. The sea voyage could take weeks, and mortality rates were likely high. A monkey that survived the ocean crossing then had to endure a desert trek from the Red Sea to the Nile, and finally a boat ride downriver to Alexandria, before potentially being shipped across the Mediterranean to Ostia, the port of Rome. By the time a rhesus macaque reached the slave markets of the capital, its price had skyrocketed. It was a luxury item in the truest sense. Buying one was a public declaration that you could afford to waste resources on a creature that provided no wool, no meat, and no guard duty, only amusement. Once purchased, the monkey entered the Roman domus, or household, where it occupied a unique and often unsettling niche. The Romans did not view animals with the same sentimental detachment we often do today. Their view was pragmatic, yet they were fascinated by the monkey's resemblance to humans. Pliny the Elder, the great naturalist, famously wrote of the monkeys' semi-human status. He noted their ability to imitate, their hands which looked so much like a man's, and their intelligence. But this resemblance was a double-edged sword. To the Romans, the monkey was a caricature of humanity, a funhouse mirror that reflected human traits in a grotesque comedic form. In wealthy villas, monkeys were rarely kept in cages all day. They were often allowed to roam the garden peristyles, tethered by long chains to keep them from destroying the expensive frescoes. But the ultimate display of ownership was to dress them. Art and literature from the period describe monkeys dressed in miniature soldiers' uniforms, complete with tiny helmets and wooden swords. Others were dressed in the silk robes of a senator or the saffron tunics of a bride. It was common for pet monkeys to wear gold torques, earrings, and bracelets. A monkey, dripping in gold, was a mobile display of the master's disposable income. There was even a trend for the pocket monkey, small species that were carried in the folds of a toga or the sleeve of a tunic, functioning as a living accessory for noblewomen, much like the purse dogs of the modern era. The misunderstanding of their biology extended to their diet. Romans often fed their monkeys from their own tables. This meant a diet heavy in grain, cooked meats, and surprisingly often, wine. Pliny mentions that monkeys were fond of wine, and anecdotes exist of monkeys being given cups to drink at dinner parties for the amusement of guests. The sight of a tipsy monkey stumbling around the dining couch was considered the height of comedy in the Roman world. Unfortunately, this diet of alcohol and human food contributed heavily to the skeletal deformities found by archaeologists. A monkey in Rome was expected to sing for its supper, or at least dance for it. Training monkeys was a specialized skill, and a well-trained animal could fetch a price 10 times that of a wild one. One of the most delightful details from Pliny is the mention of monkeys playing latrunculus, a popular Roman board game similar to chess or checkers. While it is unlikely they understood the strategy, they were trained to move the pieces, mimicking the intense concentration of two senators at play. Another popular entertainment trope was the monkey soldier. A monkey would be strapped into a miniature chariot drawn by goats or puppies. They would be handed a whip and reins and trained to drive around a track. This was more than just a circus trick. It was often a satirical bite at the military or political class. Seeing a monkey in a general's cloak pompously leading a charge of goats was a safe way to laugh at authority without committing treason. At a convivium or dinner party, the monkey was a conversation starter. Guests might be amused by the animal's ability to crack nuts. Pliny notes their skill in distinguishing empty nuts from full ones by shaking them, or by their thieving antics. A monkey stealing a fig from a guest's plate was not a nuisance. It was an icebreaker. If a senator had a monkey, the emperor had a menagerie. For the rulers of Rome, exotic animals were tools of statecraft and personal indulgence. The emperor Tiberius, known for his gloom and retreat to the island of Capri, was said to have a fascination with exotic beasts. He kept a collection of animals and was reportedly intrigued by the intelligence of primates, viewing them less as clowns and more as biological curiosities. Then there was Nero, a man who never understood the concept of too much. Nero famously adored the theatricality of exotic pets. He is said to have paraded animals through the palaces. For Nero, a monkey wasn't just a pet. It was a prop in the grand play of his life. Legends, likely exaggerated by his enemies, speak of him treating favorite animals with honors reserved for state officials, blurring the lines between beast and courtier. Perhaps the most eccentric owner was the teenage emperor Elagabalus. His reign was a fever dream of excess. Historical accounts claim he would let tame lions and leopards roam his dining halls to terrify his guests, who would die of fright thinking they were about to be eaten, only to find the beasts had been defanged and declawed. He supposedly kept monkeys in religious temples, mixing the sacred with the profane in a way that horrified the conservative Roman priesthood. While the elite loved their monkeys, the moralists hated them. To the Stoic Roman writers, the obsession with these animals was a symptom of a society that had lost its way. The most famous rebuke comes from a story recounted by Plutarch. He tells of Caesar, or in some versions the North African king Massinissa, seeing wealthy foreign women in Rome carrying puppies and monkeys in their bosoms, cuddling them like infants. The ruler stopped and asked, "Do the women of your country not bear children?" The sting was clear. The Romans were wasting their love and resources on beasts, while their own birth rates declined. The monkey became a symbol of misplaced maternal affection, a substitute for the virtuous duty of raising Roman citizens. The satirist Juvenal, who hated almost everything about cosmopolitan Rome, used the monkey to mock the vanity of the rich. In his satires, he paints a picture of wealthy women who would weep more over the death of a pet sparrow or monkey than over the death of their own husband. To Juvenal, the monkey represented luxury without substance, an ugly, useless thing dressed in gold, much like the courtiers he despised. The poet Martial, known for his witty epigrams, wrote a savage verse about a man named Cronius. He mocks Cronius for loving a monkey that looks just like him. It is a classic playground insult elevated to high art. The owner and the pet are both ugly, both foolish and both indistinguishable. But we must not romanticize this relationship. For all the woven baskets and gold earrings, the life of a Roman monkey was fraught with suffering. The climate mismatch was deadly. The rickets found in the Berenike monkeys confirms that they suffered chronic pain. Rhesus macaques require specific vitamins and sunlight exposure that they were not getting in the indoor, grain-heavy environment of a Roman house. They were slowly dying of luxury. Furthermore, while not related to pet keeping, the monkey holds a horrific place in Roman legal history in the poena culeae, or the punishment of the sack. For the crime of parricide, the killing of one's own parent, the condemned was sewn into a leather sack with 4 live animals: a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. The sack was then thrown into the river. Why a monkey? Because it was seen as a caricature of a human, a counterfeit man. Just as the parricide had perverted the natural order by killing a parent, the monkey was a perversion of the human form. It was a symbolic inclusion that doomed the animal to a terrifying, drowning death alongside the criminal. Despite the darkness, the Roman fascination with monkeys is immortalized in their art. In museums across Italy and North Africa, you can see floor mosaics depicting monkeys. They are often shown in human scenarios, fishing from a boat, driving a chariot, or sitting at a table. These were likely placed in dining rooms to amuse guests. Even the famous pre-Roman frescoes of blue monkeys in Santorini show that the Mediterranean fascination with these animals ran deep. By the Roman era, the realism had improved significantly. We see distinct species, the tailless Barbary macaque versus the long-tailed Indian langur, proving that artists were working from live models brought in by the trade. The Roman pet monkey was never just an animal. It was a canvas upon which the Romans projected their anxieties, their wealth, and their humanity. To the soldier in Berenike, the monkey was a reminder of the vast, conquered world he served. To the lonely noblewoman, it was a child that never grew up. To the satirist, it was a sign that Rome was rotting from within, obsessed with trivialities. Today, looking at the tiny skeleton in the Egyptian sand, curled up next to a rag doll that has long since disintegrated, we don't see a status symbol. We see a small, frightened creature that was loved fiercely, if clumsily, by a human who lived 2,000 years ago. In that strange, tragic bond, the distance between the ancient Roman and the modern pet owner vanishes. We are left with the enduring human desire to bridge the gap between ourselves and the wild, even if we have to drag it across an ocean and dress it in a toga to do so. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.